Night draws a tight ring around the harvest fair. Lantern smoke. Music fades. On the flatbed stage, a clerk bangs a ledger and calls a debt that is not real. Two hired men pull Mara Vale into the light. Mara stands straight because her mother taught her that no one can take the spine God gave you. But the banker, Dalton Rigg, steps forward with a smile like a blade. He says her husband owed a note. He says the interest ticked over. A ribbon is knotted at Mara's throat. The clerk reaches for it. Dalton calls the ribbon collateral. The crowd shifts. The deputy leans on a post, easy like none of this is his work. Mara's hands do not shake. Her voice is low and clear. She says the ledger is wrong. The ink breaks where a steady pen should not. The numbers jump by one, which is how a thief hides a lien. The clerk laughs at her for noticing ink. Dalton does not laugh. He lifts a finger. The hired men tug at her shawl. Cold air runs over her shoulders. The fiddle falls silent. The fair becomes a room where every door is shut. Mara breathes. She remembers her rules. Tell the truth. Keep calm. Choose dignity. Dalton says the debt can be washed clean if she yields her good name and the spring rights. The deputy nods. The crowd waits for her to break. Hoofsteps sound at the wagon lane. A tall drifter swings down. Dust hangs around his boots. He walks as if the ground asked him to be careful. His name is Cole Archer, though the town does not know it yet. His eyes count exits and hands. He sees the branded stamp on the ledger. He sees how Dalton stands to the side, never risking the front of a blow. Cole steps to the stage. Hold, he says. One word, even and plain. The hired men pause. Cole lifts his coat. He looks to Mara, not to Dalton. May I? He asks. Mara nods. The nod costs her pride because the town is watching. Cole places the coat over her shoulders. The wool is warm. It smells of saddle soap and pine. Breath returns to her chest. Dalton smiles wider. You want to play hero, stranger? Then pay the note. Cole does not answer him. He asks the clerk to open the ledger. The clerk snaps it wide. Lines march across the page. Cole's finger stops at a break in the ink. The pen lifted here, he says. The tick rose here. Someone raised the rate. Dalton says the stranger is stalling. The deputy straightens. The crowd hums. To end it, Cole takes the pen. He writes his name clean beside Mara's, not across it, not above it. Beside it, surety, Cole says. A murmur rolls. The law here is crooked, but it still knows this. A signed surety is a shield you can see. Cole turns to the deputy. You going to tear a lawful shield in front of witnesses? The deputy hesitates. He does sums in his head. Sums say trouble. He shrugs and lets the moment stand. Mara feels the coat's weight. It is more than wool. It is a line drawn in dust. She does not lean into the man who gave it. She stands inside the space his act has made and keeps her dignity. Dalton's smile thins. He gestures, and the hired men drop their hands. The crowd begins to breathe again. The fiddler tries a note, then stops. Cole offers Mara his arm. She shakes her head. I can walk, she says. He does not press. He walks a step back and to the side. They leave the stage. Behind them, Dalton calls for the next case with a tone that says this is not over. Mara does not look back. At the edge of the fair, under a half-built stall, Mara stops. The coat slides on her shoulders. She could give it back. She is cold. She is tired of standing alone while men who like the smell of power play with her life. Thank you, she says. Name's Cole, he answers. Mara draws the coat tight. She thinks of rules, no lies. No touching without asking. No debts in my name. She does not speak them yet. Dalton's men fan the shadows. The deputy bends his head to the banker. The fair looks normal again, but the night has changed shape. Mara turns toward home. Cole falls in beside her, not crowding. The road is dark, but the coat is warm, and a name now sits beside hers in ink that will not wash. Dignity will not be stolen. A paper shield has become a line the powerful will try to cross. Dawn puts frost on the grass and smoke in the chimneys. Mara wakes from a thin sleep still wrapped in the drifter's coat. She folds it on a chair, makes tea, and opens the door. Cole stands on the step. I kept watch, he says. Didn't want trouble parking on your porch. You did not park, she says. You guarded. She gives him a tin cup. Tea. They stand outside so no neighbor can say a man sat in her kitchen before the sun. The coat did its work, Mara says. But Dalton will not stop. No, Cole says. He will try another door. Mara looks at her fence in the small barn. I will not be dragged on stage again, she says. My name is not a rug. Cole sets the cup on the rail. There's a way to make the shield bigger, he says. A paper marriage. Not a real one. A legal cover. Your rules. Your house. I sign beside your name with vows the law understands. Mara weighs gossip and safety, the spring that keeps her field alive. The deputy who leans when honest work calls him to stand. If we do this, she says at last, there are 3 rules. I'm listening. No lies. No touching without asking. No debts in my name. Good rules, he says. I can keep them. We write them down, she says. We sign. A copy at the church, a copy at the notary, he says. So no one can twist it. They walk to town when the stores open. Women sweep steps. Boys chase a hoop. At the church, Reverend Hale reads their contract. Are you sure? He asks. Yes, Mara says. He looks at Cole. You know what people will say? They can say it where I cannot hear, Cole answers. The Reverend files a copy and prays for wisdom. At the notary, Miss Brandt stamps the second copy. Dalton brought papers yesterday, she says. All in a hurry. Interest lines step up like a broken fence. She glances at Mara. He will hate your ink. We do this clean, Cole says. They cross to the market. Mara buys flour and a twist of cinnamon she has not bought since her husband died. It feels like stealing joy from a locked room. Cole carries the sack but not the basket. She keeps the handle and the weight. Neighbors study them. Mrs. Lark nods. Mr. Pike tips his hat. 2 railmen, Jack and Otto, lift a hand. They stop at the bank's blackboard. Dalton has listed settled debts. Mara notes a widow's name. We should visit her, she says. We will, Cole answers. Quiet first. Loud later. Back at the house, they hang the coat on a peg. Mara writes their rules on a scrap and pins it to the wall. No lies. No touching without asking. No debts in my name. He mends a hinge on the back gate, asking before using tools. May I take the hammer? May I move this stool? The asking turns heat into peace. They split chores. He carries water. She needs bread. He checks the roofline. She brushes the mare and the new filly. The filly noses his sleeve. He gives a small surprised smile. At noon they eat on the step. Bread and apple. Cole keeps his hat between them. You don't know me, he says. I know what you did, Mara says. And what you did not do, he nods. Your spring is why Dalton wants you poor. A rail spur needs water. He can sell the land twice. I thought the same, she says. His clerk isn't smart enough to hide it. The ink breaks. The interest ticks up by 1. We'll learn the trail, Cole says. Slow, careful. Then the deputy rides past, studying the house. He touches the brim of his hat without respect. Cole watches him go. Another door, he says. Let him find it shut, Mara answers. They walk the fence and plan small things. Fix the board by the trough. Ask Jack at the rail yard about night watch. Bring cinnamon rolls to Mrs. Lark. Speak to the widow on the chalkboard. It is groundwork. As the sun lowers, Cole takes the coat and holds it out. May I? He asks again. You may, she says. He settles it over her shoulders. The coat is still a shield, and now a promise kept. Rules honored, space respected, names side by side. Lawful ink that says dignity has a guard. Night comes more gently than the last. Mara lights a lamp and sets the contract on the table. The ground under her feet now feels less likely to open. Tomorrow, she says, we start listening for other stories. Tomorrow, he says. Quiet first. Loud later. Morning brings small duties. Mara pockets a pencil and tucks their contract into an oilskin. They stop first at the widow from the bank board, Mrs. Adley. Her yard is swept. Her eyes are not. She lets them in and keeps her hands on a chair. Mara speaks gently. We saw your name on the chalkboard. Did Dalton settle fair? Mrs. Adley looks at the window. He settled fast, she says. 2 days after my barn burned. Said the numbers changed, and insurance would not pay yet. I signed because the smoke had not cleared. She pulls a paper from a tin. Look at the interest line. Mara studies the page. The ink flows smoothly, then bumps. The number rises by 1 where no step should be. Cole watches without touching. Did anyone see the fire start? Cole asks. Boys said sparks jumped from a wagon, she says. But my boys are 12 and 10. They know a lantern when they see one. A man came later with a rail yard badge. He asked how much water I used. Mara thanks her and leaves a roll on the table. On the porch, Cole exhales. Pattern, he says. They walk to the rail yard. Jack and Otto greet them. Mara lets Cole take the asking. He stands easy, hat low. We're listening, he tells Jack. Dalton's boys push hard after fires. You see anything strange at night? Lantern codes change when they shouldn't, Jack says. A hoist drops when no freights do. Then a rider crosses the dark between cars. Otto adds, there's a club where the banker plays cards. Men walk in broke and walk out brave enough to light a match. Mara thinks of Mrs. Adley's boys. If the fires help the foreclosures, someone keeps score, she says. Ledgers leave tracks. Jack nods toward a narrow office by the siding. Old Everett notarized for the yard. Retired. His niece runs the desk. She's strict. If times on ledgers are off, she'll know. They thank the men and head to the office. A bell rings when Mara opens the door. Behind the desk, Miss Greer looks up. Can I help you? Mara keeps her voice even. We're building a record. We want to read carbon copies, Miss Greer warms. She shows thin sheets and explains originals, duplicates and timestamps. Ink lies, she says. Time rarely does. Cole asks, if someone stamped papers the same hour every time late at night, would you notice? I would, she says. Because I do. She pulls a small book. I jot odd runs. Last month, several private ledgers came through near midnight. Same notary sign, same club seal. She tears out the page and slides it across. You did not get this from me. They step into the bright. Mara grips the oilskin. Quiet first, she says. Loud later. Pressure arrives before supper. 2 of Dalton's clerks walk past, counting fence posts. A third drops a note. A review of water rights next week. The deputy rides by again, tips his hat and calls. Paper weddings blow away in the wind. After he goes, Cole checks the gate latch twice and ties a bell to the back path. He shows Mara how to lift it off at daybreak. It will sing if someone pushes in the night, he says. They spread papers on the table after dark. Mara works a slate like she once did for school children. She draws lines, marks ticks, and copies times. Cole lays a blank ledger beside her notes and circles each rise that makes no sense. Rain comes softly. They plan who to visit next. The storekeeper who lost his shed, a rancher east of the ridge, the bank clerk who looks worried when Dalton smiles. Mara writes names and adds one more rule. Do not let anger write the plan. Cole adds another. Never run only on rage. Run on proof. A rap sounds at the door. Miss Brandt, the notary, stands wet on the stoop. I should not be here, she says. But I heard talk I don't like. She hands Mara thin carbon leaves. Samples from last year. Stamp spacing is even. This year. Odd. Also, someone files copies under maiden names to make wives look single and weak. Mara thanks her and promises care. When the door shuts, she presses the pages flat under a book. Cole gives a single nod. They work until the lamp gutters. Before sleep, Mara pins their contract high on the wall where she can see it if she wakes to smoke or steps. The coat hangs below it like a watchman. Dalton Riggs sits somewhere under a lamp and thinks he holds all the pieces. But pieces move. A widow with a pencil and a drifter with steady hands are now learning the board. Evening comes with a yellow sky and a hard wind. Mara ties the bell off the back path and checks the latch twice. Cole walks the fence with a hooded lantern. He checks the stall. The mare flicks an ear and settles. Cole studies the window. Dalton lost face at the fair, he says. He will try to earn it back with fire. Then he will meet water, Mara answers. Buckets wait at every corner. A croaker sack sits under the sink. Far away, a whistle blows. Jack's on late yard, Cole says. Twice the bell trembles without singing. Loose knot, Cole says, tightening it. Near midnight, a sharp smell cuts the air. Not kitchen smoke. Hot pitch, fast and oily. The mare snorts. Cole is at the door. Stay behind me, he says, then adds, May I take your arm? You may, Mara says, and they move as one. Light leaps beyond the shed. Fire climbs the boards like a claw. The bell cries out as the back gate shutters. Mara hands Cole buckets and throws the well rope out. Chain, she says. No panic. Wet the ground. Soak the door. Cole nods and works in rhythm, dip, throw, step. The fire hisses but rises. The filly, Mara says. Front half still clear, Cole answers. We can lay a wet path. Mara drags croaker sacks to the pump, dunks them and hands them to Cole. He slaps the soaked cloth along the dirt, making a dark lane. Smoke bites their throats. Stay low, he says. Follow the wet. Mara wraps a wet sack over her head and another across her hands. She steps into the lane. The tack room flares. The mare stands between her baby and the flame. It's all right, girl, Mara says, steady and plain. She moves slowly, wet feet on wet earth, letting the mare see her hands. Cole throws water at the beam and pushes the smoke up. He counts his breath. 1, 2, 3, throw. Mara snaps the lead rope and makes a narrow corridor with the wet sacking. Come on, she says. Through the river. The filly balks, then feels the cool on her knees and steps. The mare comes with her, chest to the steam, trussed tight as a rein. They spill into the yard, coughing. Cole swings the gate wide. Go, he tells the horses. They surge into the field. He is back at the door in 2 strides. Flames punch through the roof. Cole and Mara soak the fence to keep fire from running to the house. Neighbors wake and shout. 2 buckets arrive full. Jack the railman barrels in with Otto behind him. Shirt sleeves rolled. Saw a false blink on the yard light, Jack gasps. Knew it was trouble. Together they beat the blaze from the edges. Fire eats fast, then sags. The shed gutters to a black shell and a red heart. Mara leans on her knees. Cole's face is streaked in wet. Look, Otto says, pointing with his chin. By the water barrel lies a matchbook, charred at the corner but not gone. A gold stamp shows a fox wrapped around a key, Jack swears. Dalton's club. Private room behind the hotel. Cole lifts the matchbook with a stick and turns it. Inside, someone notched the paper. 2 cuts, a gap, 3 cuts. Jack nods. Lantern talk. 2 short, gap, 3 short. A rider signal. He branded the fire with his pride, Mara says. Now he has signed our proof. Neighbors drift homeward. Jack and Otto promise to watch the yard end until dawn. Cole and Mara sit on the step to breathe. They share a blanket. We have to bring this to light, Mara says. Quiet first, Cole answers by habit. Then he shakes his head. No, tonight was loud. We answer loud and lawful. Mara looks at the ruin. We speak to every neighbor with smoke in their past. We copy every page. We make a list and a map. We also visit the club, Cole says. Not to drink. To listen. Can we do it without stooping? We can, he says. We keep our rules. The burned bell lies bent. Cole sets it on the table like a promise. He writes a line and pins it under the contract. Fire came. We stood. Mara washes her hands in cold water until they stop shaking. She lights a lamp and opens the ledger packet. She lays the matchbook beside the broken ink lines and the odd midnight stamps. 3 pieces, 1 picture. The stars come out between clouds, sharp and cold above the quiet yard. They hold still. Morning smells of wet ash and coffee. The shed is a ribcage of char. Mara and Cole list what was lost and what still stands. The mare noses their sleeves. The filly bumps their knees. We are still standing, Mara says. We are, Cole answers. Now we make it count. They start with neighbors. Mrs. Lark saw a rider bent low between houses. Mr. Pike smelled coal oil before the first flame. Jack and Otto report the yard light blinked 2 short, gap 3 short. Then the hoist shuddered with no freight due. Cole writes each detail. Mara adds names and times to a simple map. They split the morning. Mara visits Mr. Harris, the shopkeeper whose shed burned in the spring. She brings cinnamon rolls and a quiet voice. He speaks of smoke at midnight, a stranger whistling cactus flower, a deputy who arrived before the bucket line and told people to stand back. He shows a notice. My rate jumped right after, he says. By 1. Cole rides to the East Ridge to see rancher Belle Crowley. She points to the black scar behind her barn. After the blaze, the clerk said I misread my numbers, she says. Cole checks the paper. The ink lifts at the interest tick. The number steps up once. Belle signs an affidavit. The rate changed after the fire. At noon they meet at the church. Reverend Hale gives them a table by the window, a side cabinet. Truth likes daylight, he says, and careful feet. Miss Brandt, the notary, stamps each affidavit. Chain of custody, she says. The deputy proves her point. He strolls in as if to count hymnals, glances at their cards and grins. Collecting stories. Reverend Hale steps close. The sanctuary is for prayer. The deputy taps the folder, leaves a dust smear, and walks out. Cole's jaw works. Mara puts a hand near his sleeve, not on it. Quiet first, she says. Quiet, he echoes, breathing until his shoulders settle. Afternoon brings the rail office. Miss Greer lets them read the midnight runs again. A friend says Dalton's Club buys matchbooks, she whispers. Fox with a key, gold on red. Mara shows the charred matchbook. Miss Greer nods. Then the back room walk to your yard. They visit the county brand inspector, Holt Ramirez, eating on his porch. He shares this. Foreclosures jump after barn fires on a route that bends toward the planned spur. Someone wants a clear corridor, he says. Water and land bundled cheaply, he adds. Deputy's brother bought 2 lots for pennies. Holt signs an affidavit and points them to a rancher named Decker, who fought off a fire and kept his place. On the road home, tension finds them. Mara walks fast. Cole keeps pace. You want it loud, she says. I want to nail Dalton to his own door. We will, Cole says. But we do not trip over our own boots. You think I am reckless. I think you are brave and tired of being handled. Dalton wants you angry. Angry people skip steps. My steps will hold, she says. But I will not slow to please small men. I would never ask you to slow for them, he says. Only to land each step where it will hold. She nods. All right. They crest the rise and see the deputy at their gate with 2 men. He waves a folded paper. Afternoon. I am here to review a complaint. He unfolds it. This claims your marriage is a fraud to dodge debt. Mara keeps her face smooth. Our vows are filed at church and stamped at the office. Papers, the deputy says, are only as good as the hearts behind them. Cole meets his eyes. And badges are only as good as the hands that wear them. The deputy smiles without teeth. There will be a hearing. Bring your folder. He rides off. Dust hangs. Mara turns to Cole. He means to twist our shield. He will try, Cole says. So we hold it tighter. We keep the rules, no lies. No touching without asking. No debts in your name. And 2 more, no walking alone after dark. No papers leave the church without a witness. Mara repeats them. No walking alone after dark. No papers leave the church without a witness. Then we keep going. We keep going, Cole says. Quiet first. Loud later. By lamplight they list the day's gains. Names, times, maps, affidavits, and the matchbook sit in neat lines. They write a word at the center. Proof. Under it, patience. Mara adds 1 more. Dignity. She pins that word over the contract. Outside, crickets start. Inside, the coat hangs like a promise. The trail is longer than hoped, shorter than feared, and straight enough to follow if they keep their feet. Wind scrubs the sky clean by morning. Soot clings to the fence, but the house stands. Mara boils coffee and lays out their notes. Cole sharpens a pencil and draws a line down the table. Left side for stories, he says. Right side for numbers. Miss Brandt copies 2 statements. Reverend Hale brings a tin box for safekeeping. Holt Ramirez sends a rider with a map of recent fires. Dots marching toward the rail spur. The pattern tightens. Dalton will feel us closing, Mara says. Then he'll push. Cole answers. We need inside proof. He means the club with the fox and key. They prepare without hurry. Mara pins her hair and hat. Cole cleans his coat. They agree on quiet taps, once for leave, twice for stay, 3 for danger. Before dusk they visit Decker, the rancher who beat back Flame. He shows a blackened rope with a fancy knot. Town hands lit this, he says. His ledger's rate climbed after he refused to sell water rights. Decker signs an affidavit. If this goes public, I will stand up, he says. The deputy told me to hush. Back in town, the deputy leans on the hotel rail. Hearing on your pretty paper 3 days from now, he calls. County office noon, Mara smiles. We will wear clean truth. You'll be there? He asks Cole. I sign what I stand by, Cole says, looking past him to the door with the fox and key. Inside the club, smoke pools. Men laugh. A piano plays off tune. Cole buys a cheap beer to rent a chair.
Mara buys a lemonade to rent a seat and look. Cards whisper.
Coins click. Dalton Riggs sits in the backroom doorway. His clerk drifts with pencils and a plate of matchbooks. Now Mara sees how the fire walked. A gift on a plate, pride stamped in gold. Jack and Otto had coached them on staff names. A barback called Will keeps glancing at the alley door. A waiter called Finch has lamp oil on his cuffs. A poker man in a clean vest wears a notary ring. Cole taps once. Stay. He strolls to the bulletin board and reads notices. Freight times. Private parties. After-hours notarization by arrangement. He drifts to the hall, counts steps to the back room, and returns. Mara watches hands, not faces. The clerk sets a ledger down, turns and pulls a carbon leaf from his sleeve. He swaps the top page for a twin with a higher number on one line, then presses the stamp. When he turns back, his smile is thin. 2 taps from Cole. Stay. Dalton laughs. He pats the deputy's shoulder as if the badge were his. He sets a small velvet pouch on the table. To the cause, he says. Mara fixes the picture in her mind. Who sat where? Who touched what? Where the ledger lay. She notes the clock, 9:40, then 9:53. She hears the hoist outside lift when no freight is due. They leave before they can be seen leaving. In the alley, night breathes cooler. We saw the trick, Cole says. We still need something to hold, Mara answers. A carbon page, a ledger copy, or a stamp run that links times to the fires. Miss Greer can match stamps, Cole says. Holt can match dates. Jack can match hoist logs. Line those 3 and even a crooked deputy will slip. At home, they work by lamplight. Mara writes a clean timeline across butcher paper. Cole drafts a plan for the hearing. Who brings what? Who speaks first? Who stays silent until the right name is spoken? Dalton feeds on surprise, he says. We give him court light. Tension creeps in as the hour grows late. Let me write the witness order, Cole says. I teach, Mara answers. I order voices for a living. I know the deputy's temper. I know the town's. Silence. Cole sets his pen down. We both know pieces, he says. Take the order. I'll fix the map. Mara nods. Thank you. They trade pages and the room untwists. Near midnight, a soft knock. Mrs. Adley stands with her boys. The deputy asked what we told you, she whispers. Tell him you told the truth, Mara says. And you will tell it again at the hearing. The older boy squares his shoulders. We will. After they leave, Mara and Cole sit in the quiet. The coat hangs on the peg. Their contract gleams. The rules hold. 2 days, Mara says. 2 days. Cole echoes. Quiet first. Loud later. Between them on the table, the Fox and Key matchbook waits like bait. The next move must be straight and sure. At dawn, we will split tasks. Stamps with Miss Greer, hoist logs with Jack, dates with Holt, and copies with Miss Brandt. The day moves in steady work. Papers are sorted, copies sealed, and routes set for the hearing. Mara bakes a loaf for Mrs. Adley's boys and writes witness names. Cole oils his saddle. He will ride to Holt at dawn for dates. By late afternoon, the town is tight as a drum. The deputy plants himself on the boardwalk with a notice and reads it aloud. The county will hear a petition, he calls. Question of a fraudulent marriage used to dodge a lawful debt. His eyes find Mara. If the marriage is a sham, the shield will be struck. Mara clasps her hands. We will be there, she says. With proof. Proof is what I carry, he answers, patting his coat and walks away. He wants you rattled, Cole says. I am not a bell, she answers. They keep moving. Miss Greer confirms the midnight stamp run. Holt sends a list of fires and dates. Jack and Otto copied a hoist log that shows lifts when no freight was due. Miss Brandt seals the Fox and Key matchbook and writes the chain of hands. At sundown, they go to the church. Reverend Hale locks all pieces in the tin box. Night brings other plans. A thin boy knocks, coal dust under his nails. Ma'am, he says, I work nights at the grain elevator. The banker says if you meet him there, just you, he'll settle. No, deputy. Pressure lives in the boy's eyes. Easy mercy is not Dalton's way, but corners make careless men show their moves. Thank you, she says. Tell him I'll be there at midnight alone. Cole looks hard at her but waits. When the boy goes, Cole lays both palms on the table. He wants you separated? Yes, she says. So we set the board first. You are near, not seen. Jack and Otto run lantern codes. Miss Greer watches the clock. Holt waits down the lane with Decker. All right, he says. Write it clearly. They draw the elevator and siding. A catwalk crosses the bin. A hoist hangs like a jaw. Sheds line the spur. They mark where riders enter, where a torch might hide, and where a ledger could be snatched. Signals, Cole says. 2 short gap, 3 short means riders move. Long short means gate clear. 3 long means run the grain. Run the grain. Cut the hoist rope and flood the siding. Grain rolls like water. Horses hate it. It buys time and noise. Mara touches the coat and their contract. No lies, she says. You will be there, he answers. You just won't be alone. They eat quickly. Mara writes Reverend Hale a note. If we are late to morning light, come to the yard. Bring the tin. Bring Miss Brandt. One more rule, she adds. No one dies if we can help it. I will hold to that, Cole says. Wind kicks up dust as they walk to the yard. Jack and Otto step from the shadows with hooded lamps. Eyes on the switches, Jack says. If the whistle comes, Otto cuts the hoist. Miss Greer's lamp glows in a second-story window. Holt waits past the mill road, Decker with him. Midnight lifts its head. Mara steps into the lantern wash by the elevator door. She pulls the coat close and keeps her hands where they can be seen. Dalton arrives with 2 riders. The deputy is not at his side, which means he is near. Mistress Vale, Dalton says. You came alone, good. Nothing you do is clean, Mara says. He smiles. Sign a release. Admit the marriage is a dodge. Give up the spring. Keep your house. Stillness shows her everything. A flicker from the yard end. 2 short gap, 3 short. A rider sliding left to block the alley. A shape on the catwalk. The trap is set. So is theirs. Inside, Dalton says. Mara looks once toward the dark where Cole waits. She steps into the elevator. It smells of grain and oil. A ledger lies on a crate. A notary stamp sits beside it. The door swings shut. Dalton lays a paper and slides a pen. Right here, he says. Freedom bought with fear is a new lock, she says. Outside, faint metal ticks. Long short. Gate clear. Dalton's smile thins. He pushes the pen closer. The catwalk creaks. A rope whispers through a pulley. In the corner, a lantern holds too much oil. Mara sets her palm on the empty line. If you wanted clean, she says, you would have come in daylight. Daylight is for speeches, he says. Midnight is for decisions. A blink reaches through a high window, 2 short, gap 3 short. Riders moving. Dalton snaps his fingers. One rider slides the bolt. The other tips the lantern so the flame speaks louder. Above them, a shadow shifts and is still. The night is about to turn loud tonight. The lantern tilts. Flame licks the rim. Mara keeps her hand flat on the blank line and breathes slowly. The coat on her shoulders feels like a steady palm. Above, a tiny scrape. Cole moving where the dark hides him. Dalton nods to the rider with the lamp. Heat makes quick choices. Truth does not fear light, Mara says. The glare spills across the ledger. The top page is too clean, its corners are not true. A thin edge of carbon peeks like a black tongue. Her finger taps the stamp. You always press time before a signature. Dalton's smile is dry. Sign and keep your house. Night air sighs under the door. Then the elevator groans. Long metal giving a warning. From outside a whistle blasts. Long Jack's signal. On the catwalk Cole moves. He draws a knife and slices the release rope. The hoist drops with a teeth-deep thunk. A hatch opens like a mouth. Grain roars. It pours down the chute, floods the siding like an amber river. Horses scream outside. Boots slip. The rider at the door bolts it without thinking. The other jerks the lantern up in surprise. Cole slides down the ladder and kicks the hot lantern aside so it splashes against a damp board by the hatch. Flame snaps and dies. No fires tonight, he says. Dalton staggers. You fool. A name beside a name, Cole says. Mara uses the jolt. She flips the ledger stack toward herself. The top page slides off. Under it lie faint gray twins, duplicate carbons. Each with an interest tick raised by 1, each stamped at the same late hour. She lifts the carbons and holds them high. Miss Greer, she calls toward the window. Mark your clock. Across the siding, a lamp flashes once, twice. Miss Greer has heard. The bolted door jerks. The deputy's voice slides through the crack. Open up, Mistress Vale, you're making a scene. Scenes prefer daylight, Mara says. She backs up to the ladder, carbons inside her coat, and witnesses. Dalton lunges. Cole steps between, hands low. Don't, he says. Dalton feints left. Cole lets him slip and he goes to his knees in the grain. The notary stamp skates off a crate, bumps a beam, and lands at Mara's boot. She toes it into her pocket. Outside, grain keeps pouring, weighing the door shut. Riders shout. Hooves churn, then stop. Grain does not hurt, but it swallows speed. Cole touches Mara's elbow. May I? You may, she says. They climb. Paper will not save you, Dalton snarls below. Paper saves the weak from the strong when the strong fear daylight, Mara answers. On the catwalk, Cole snaps twice. Somewhere outside, Otto yanks a lever. A second torrent pours. The siding becomes a hill that moves. They cross to a shadowed stair. At a tall window, Miss Greer leans out with a notebook. 9:59, she calls. And 10:02. Both stamped. Thank you, Mara says, passing a folded carbon through. Miss Greer slides it under her board and hides the rest in her sleeve. A shoulder hits the door again. Wood groans. Break it, the deputy barks. Cole and Mara run down the back stairs into the alley. The grain river shines under the moon. Jack waits near a switch with his lamp hooded. North Lane is clear, he says. Holt's 2 blocks out. Gate? Latched. And the horses hate the hill. They hurry along the wall. A rider spots them and tries to cut across the spill. His horse sinks to the fetlock, stamping. Otto whistles once, high and thin, and waves them on. The deputy finally forces the door. He slides on the grain, catches himself, sees the empty stamp spot, and freezes. Find them! Mara and Cole reach the mill road. Holt and Decker step from the dark with a wagon. In, Holt says. Keep low. They climb aboard. The wagon rolls steadily. Holt keeps the team calm while Decker throws a tarp. Through the weave, Mara sees lanterns jitter. Men shout, no shots yet. You cut the rope true, she says. Sometimes the clean cut is the honest move, Cole answers. They rattle to the church by a back way. Reverend Hale waits with Miss Brandt. The tin box sits ready. Mara lays the carbons inside. Miss Brant seals them and writes the chain of hands, found at the elevator, witnessed by Miss Greer, carried by Holt, locked by the church. Cole places the notary stamp beside the carbons. Dalton will come. He can come to the hearing, Reverend Hale says. On time, not at midnight. Outside, the town holds its breath, waiting for daylight and law to work. Mara closes the lid. The lock clicks. Her hands stop shaking. The coat warms her shoulders. Quiet first, she says, breathing. Loud in the morning. Morning finds the town at the county hall. Sun lays bars across the floor. Benches creak. Women hold children and face front. Reverend Hale opens the doors. Mara sits near the front, coat on her shoulders, contract in her pocket. Cole stands a step behind, hat in his hands. Miss Brant sets the tin box on the clerk's table. Miss Greer holds her notebook. Holt Ramirez waits with Decker, Jack, and Otto. Dalton Rigg arrives with boots and a smile that expects applause. The deputy walks at his side, fingers on his badge. The county judge, Mr. Ellery, takes his seat and raps. This hearing will answer two things, he says. Is the marriage of Mara Vale and Cole Archer a fraud to dodge debt? And has the bank altered rates or records to force foreclosures? Dalton begins with smooth words. A wandering man wrote his name beside the widow's to make a show. The marriage is a trick. The bank is orderly. Fires are acts of God. Judge Ellery lifts a hand. We will have witnesses, not wind. Miss Brant unlocks the tin. She lays the carbons and the notary stamp on the table. Chain of custody is clean, she says. Found at the grain elevator during a midnight meeting called by Mr. Rigg. Miss Greer steps up. I witnessed the time mark, she says. 9:59 and 10:02 stamped when no freight ran. I also logged identical midnight stamps last month. Jack lifts a logbook. The hoist moved twice last night when no load was due. We cut the rope. The grain spill was our alarm. Holt raises his map. Fires marched toward the planned spur. Foreclosures spiked along that line. The deputy's brother bought 2 lots cheaply after 2 blazes. A hum moves through the room. The judge taps the desk. We will hear from the petitioners, Mara rises. My husband owed no such balance, she says. Interest lines jump by one where a steady hand should not. When the bank tried to shame me, Cole Archer put his coat on me and wrote his name beside mine as surety. Later we made a lawful marriage with written rules filed and stamped. It does not dodge debt. It guards dignity while we seek justice. She turns to the benches. We gathered statements. We brought proof instead of anger. Mrs. Adley stands. My barn burned, she says. 2 days late, the rate changed. I signed because the smoke had not cleared. Belle Crowley speaks next. I refused to sell my water. The rate jumped. The clerk said I misread. I can read. Decker tells how he beat back flame. More neighbors add facts. The pattern tightens. The judge turns to Dalton. Do you contest the stamps? Dalton spreads his hands. I contest the idea that a banker sworn to order would creep at night like a thief. Then call your clerk, the judge says. The young clerk steps up, pale. Dalton prompts him. Tell the court about honest work and careful numbers. The clerk stares at the notary stamp and at the Fox and Key matchbook sealed in wax. He looks at the deputy. He looks at Mara, who stands straight as a lamp. Something in him gives. I changed the ticks, he whispers. I lifted the pen. Mr. Rigg told me to bring the ledgers to the club after close. The deputy said he would keep the street clear. Fires made people say yes fast. Last night we called Mara to sign away her spring. Silence rings. Then the clerk lifts a small list. I will testify. Dalton surges to his feet. Lies from a frightened boy. Cole's voice is quiet. He is frightened because he has a conscience. Judge Ellery raises a palm. Bailiff, take the statement. He turns to the deputy. If you aided private midnight filings, you will answer. The deputy snorts. You cannot prove it. Miss Greer lifts her notebook. I can, she says. You signed 2 night filings yourself. The judge's eyes go cold. Badge, he says. Set it on the rail. After a beat, the deputy unpins the star and sets it down. Two constables step close. Mr. Rigg, the judge continues, you will submit your books for audit. Pending that, this court recognizes the marriage of Mara Vale and Cole Archer as lawful and in good faith. The surety stands. No line may be enforced on the spring until this matter is resolved. A breath the size of the room releases. Dalton's smile dies. He looks smaller without noise to lean on. Mara's hands loosen around the contract. Cole's hat lifts, then settles. Reverend Hale bows his head. Jack squeezes Otto's shoulder. Holt folds his map. The judge raps once more. We are not done. Indictments may follow. But today light did its work. The hall empties slowly. Boots scrape. Papers rustle. People speak in low voices that sound like relief. Mara stands still and lets the quiet pass through her. Cole stays a step back, making space that feels like respect. Reverend Hale closes the tin box and hands it to Miss Brandt. We keep this under lock until the audit, he says. Holt nods to Mara. Mrs. Adley hugs her boys. The town that watched last night's dark now names daylight together. Outside, the sun sits warm on the steps. Cole tilts his hat back. Dalton Rigg stands under the eaves with a lawyer. The deputy without a badge stares at his empty shirt. Constables walk him away. Mara draws a breath. Thank you, she says to Cole. For what? For asking before stepping close. For putting your name beside mine when you could have kept it safe. He shakes his head. My name is only worth what it protects. They walk home by the long road. The burned shed is black, but the fence line holds. The mare makes a soft sound. The filly tosses her head, proof that a night of fire did not win. Mara rubs the mare's face and laughs, a small sound that feels like the beginning. They sweep the yard together. Jack and Otto bring boards. Neighbors bring nails. Miss Greer arrives with a pie and news. The auditor will start with midnight stamps. Reverend Hale carries a folded paper. A new start, he says. He reads plain words. The county recognizes a fund to repair what fire stole from families wronged. Holt will oversee it. The first coin goes to Mrs. Adley. People nod. Work is the sound. When the yard is clean, the coat still hangs on its peg like a patient promise. Mara touches the sleeve. I kept my rules, she says softly. No lies, no touching without asking. No debts in my name. And I kept them with you, Cole answers. She looks at him. I don't want a paper shield anymore. What do you want? Real vows, she says, steady. Not to fight fear, but to build a life. If you want the same. Cole's eyes go bright and then gentle. He does not step closer until he asks, May I take your hands? You may. His palms are warm. They stand in the doorway where the house looks forward. Tomorrow is Sunday, Reverend Hale says, smiling as if he heard what the room already knew. The church is open. Morning light is a fine witness. Word travels in small ways. By shared bread, by pump handle, by quiet steps. At first light, women tie ribbons back on, boys comb hair, and men dust sleeves. The bell is gone, yet the air holds an echo that invites feet to move. Inside the church, sunlight pools on the floorboards. Mara walks down the aisle in her blue work dress and the same boots she wore the night she stood on a stage. Cole waits at the rail, hat in his hands. Reverend Hale keeps it simple. Vows mean we choose each other when days are long and when wood is short, he says. They mean we keep our rules and make room for grace. Cole turns to Mara. No lies, he says. No touching without asking. No debts in your name. I add this. No leaving you to stand alone. I will put my strength where your dignity lives. Mara answers. No lies. No touching without asking. No debts in my name. I add this. No shutting you out when fear speaks poorly. I will put my courage where your steadiness stands. Reverend Hale nods. Then make the simple sign that began this story. Cole lifts his coat. He looks to Mara. May I? You may. He sets the coat on her shoulders. The room draws a breath. Cole places his name beside hers in the church book with a steady hand. Not across. Not over. Beside. After, neighbors walk them into the yard. The sky is high and kind. Belle Crowley hands them a rose cutting. Miss Brandt passes a wrapped packet. Copies of their vows. Decker promises lumber for a new shed. Mara leans her head against Cole's arm, then lifts it. We have work, she says. We do, he answers. We always will. They plant the rose near the peg where the coat hangs. In time it will climb, fire turned to blossom. The filly butts Cole's shoulder and steals a ribbon from his pocket. Mara laughs. Night will come again. When it does, two names will face it together. Not as a shield borrowed in crisis, but as a choice made in daylight. Signed clean. And kept. A coat will always be ready. A light will be left on. Dignity holds. Love answers. If this story moved you, tap like. It tells YouTube to share it with more people. Subscribe for more clean Western romances and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Tell me in the comments, which moment hit you most? The coat on her shoulders, the grain flood, or the vows? And if you want another frontier love story, watch the next video in the list. Thanks for riding with us.